You are listening to Slightly Sauced. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 214 of Slightly Sauced. My name is John.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Derek.
And
I fucked that up.
Did you? I don't know. It sounded okay to me.
The pause was so long.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I can fix that in post, you know.
Well, who cares, really?
Can do magic.
It's not a slightly sauce beginning unless one of us fucks up.
Derek, I make us all sound like really good radio people in post with the editing.
Is that the official technical term for that?
Yeah. I make us all sound like we're skilled and have been doing this for years and never say when we're trying to think of words is what I do in post.
Well, John, that is fantastic. And as you can see, we're slightly above seasonal temperatures outside.
Yeah, that's true. It is a little bit warm. Why are we talking about the weather all of a sudden? It's not warm at all. It got really cold today. It's awful.
It's 20 degrees out.
Hey, should we hear what Ernie has to say?
It's Ernie. He likes dragons. Ernie. It's Ernie. Sending human skin to people. It's Ernie. And Bert.
Ernie sent us an email this week. It had the subject, I am the law, in all capital letters. And it says, hey there, party people. On the previous episode, you had some questions regarding the law, specifically about estates. You asked for legal professionals to contact you to clarify things. What a coincidence. For the past 9 months, I've actually been studying to be a legal assistant. Ernie never ceases to amaze me. I'm pretty sure that he was a furniture delivery guy, and then the last time we heard from him, he was a dishwasher, and now he's going to be a lawyer, a legal assistant? This guy, he's had every job under the sun. He says, I have to state for the record that I'm not permitted to give actual legal advice. You must contact a lawyer for that, but I can tell you what the law says. What's the difference between the two of those things?
Liability.
So, you can say what the law says, but you can't contextually color it and, recommend somebody take an approach?
You can't give legal advice. It's the same reason why, when you sign up for a direct investment account at a brokerage or at your brokerage account, you sign all the paperwork to be able to buy and sell stock or whatever, but you can't actually execute trades on behalf of anyone else.
Interesting. Huh. Okay. Anyway, Ernie continues, according to the Family Law Act, marriage is considered to be an economic contract. So upon the death of a spouse, the surviving spouse may choose to set aside the will of the deceased spouse and elect to receive what the spouse would be entitled to under the Family Law Act provisions regarding net family property, if that would be to his or her financial benefit. In other words, the Family Law Act sees death as if it were a divorce and allows for the equal split of net family property. Wow. That's interesting. So your law really, if your surviving spouse, assuming you have one, chooses not to execute your will, that it just gets tossed away? It doesn't really matter at all, I guess?
That's interesting.
Further, if a person has children from a previous marriage and decides to leave his or her property to them, if he or she dies before his or her current spouse, the matrimonial home will automatically go to that current spouse no matter what the will says. The children have to wait until their step-parent dies before they can get the property. Fascinating stuff.
So that makes sense to me, because otherwise you'd be putting people out on the street potentially.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. If your current spouse is a dependent, you can't have them lose they marry you, they put up with your shit for the last X number of years of your life, right? But you also hear occasionally of families, getting uppity or gossipy about some member of their family has gotten a divorce and gotten a new friend or whatever, and it could well be that everybody else's inheritance is at play. This sounds now like a soap opera now that I'm talking about it in my head.
I'm waiting for the amnesia.
Yeah, exactly, right? I was thinking, you hear these stories, and I was like, I've never actually heard one of those stories. That seems to just be a thing.
I have, actually.
Have you really? Of people getting uppity
multiple
about...
times.
Really?
Yeah, people get uppity about all sorts. All of a sudden, a relative will come in that hasn't been close to someone for a really long time and be really close to them for the last 2 years before they die. And then everyone else
taking
is
them to all the doctor's visits and stuff.
Whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
You're stealing my inheritance here. You're gonna get a bigger share now.
It's funny what like a sniff of money does to people, isn't it? Just it's something.
So, based on those two last things, though, I find them sort of contradictory.
Okay.
Because in the one sense it says the surviving spouse can basically throw away the will.
That's right.
And then in the next it says if the will says the house goes to the children, then the surviving spouse gets to decide what, like, that basically the will is invalidated until such time as the surviving spouse is gone.
That's correct, yes.
But couldn't the surviving spouse just nullify that will?
Sure could. Yeah, no, it sort of seems like that second clause is unnecessary, doesn't it? Like it's covered by the first one. Yeah, it absolutely does seem that way because, it sounds like in the first part, the surviving spouse has the choice of whether or not to execute on the deceased's will. And so then the second shouldn't be necessary unless, can you choose who the executor of your will is? Like, could you say...
I assume you could, yeah.
Could I say my uncle is the executor of my will and not my wife? That's weird. I don't know. Anyway, Ernie says, you people were talking about my favorite subject, death. If you want to know more about what can happen after you die, I recently found a very interesting YouTube channel called Ask a Mortician. She covers a wide range of topics, including what happened to the Titanic's dead and human skin. Check it out. Actually, that sounds fascinating. I love those YouTube channels that are run by people who are in sort of what you might consider to be like an obscure career and tell you about them. There's one, what is it? Captain Joe is a guy who's a commercial airline pilot, and he runs a YouTube channel that's all about the ins and outs of the commercial airline business, and it's equally fascinating. It's pretty cool. Ernie finally says, personally, I want to have my body marinated in beer, Blue Beaver, of course, for a week, and then just be put in a burlap sack and into a hole in the ground. I've always fancied the idea of having a tree planted on top of me so I can fertilize it as I decay. On that note, farewell, Ernie. You know, there are worse ideas, actually.
My question is, so at the funeral, would people have to drink that beer that you marinated?
Oh, I should hope not. That can't be good for you.
I mean, how do you think they brew it?
That's why it tastes like that.
I rather like the idea of having a tree planted over your burial site. That seems kind of cool. Like you read about that in like old-timey books, like Before Proper Graveyards and shit. There's a series of fantasy novels that I've read a million times in which one of the characters dies and his sons bury him on his farmstead and plant a tree over him so that they always have a memorial of where dad is buried. And that seems pretty boss to me. I like the idea of having a tree planted on me.
Of course, in Ernie's case, it would be a brew-real.
Oh.
Dad joke.
That was definitely a dad joke.
Speaking of Blue Beaver beer, you'll have to let me know if you can get that in BC. Because I'll be out there 2 months from now.
2 months from now you're going to go? Okay, that's plenty of time for Ernie to let you know if that's available out there.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I can pick some up.
That's a good idea. You should bring some home, except not because you can't take alcohol across provincial lines. Oh, wait, no, that was decided, right? By that guy from Nova Scotia who was going to Quebec to buy booze?
You know, I'm not really sure.
Was that decided? Can you take alcohol across provincial lines now? I'm sure, because there was a big...
can, I think.
We talked about it on the show a little while ago, because the guy had gone all the way to like the Supreme Court saying, hey, this is ridiculous. I'm getting in trouble for going and buying booze in Quebec, which is something that everybody does because the booze prices in Nova Scotia are really high. Is that... Maybe I'm misremembering. Shit.
Let's see.
Anyway, if it's legal, you should bring us some Blue Beavers. What I'm trying to say. If it's not, you should too, but just like I didn't say that. We can crack a cold one with Ernie in spirit. Anyway, what are we talking about tonight?
First, I guess we should start with the new segment.
Oh, yeah, that's important. Right. What is the new segment?
The new segment is what old movie should I be watching that I've never watched?
Oh, that's a good one.
I guess I'll give a background. We were on the weekend. We were killing some time, and we were trying to figure out what to throw on Netflix.
Okay.
So we couldn't decide, and then we ended up in like the classic movie section. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of them, like obviously like Ben-Hur and Schindler's List and stuff like the major ones, right? But I say that, and then I've never seen all these other major ones that are on there. And I've always had good intentions of going back and seeing them, but they're all like 4 hours long.
Yeah. I think movies used to have intermissions, which is weird in like modern terms.
So we actually started watching Cleopatra.
Oh, right on.
How
is it? Is it good?
Yeah.
Steph
Only
and
about
I
2
a while
2 hours
ago
into it,
watched a
but-
few Marilyn Monroe movies, silver screen age type of things, and they're all sort of musicals, like they have songs in them and stuff. And we watched 2 of them. One that we really enjoyed, that was she and some slutty brunette friend of hers go on a cruise and start trying to have sex with everybody or something. And then trying to get married, something along those lines. And it was really enjoyable. And then we watched another one that we turned off because it was like gross, where it was like the same plot, but it was in New York City, and these women all pooled together to get an apartment so that they could get married. And like they just kept selling off their furniture in order to afford to pay rent on this apartment so that they could invite men over to try and marry them. And it was really weird. Like the connotation was like that these women would, I don't know, whatever, just to get married. It's very strange. It was a weird movie, and it was we turned it off. But some of those old Marilyn Monroe movies are actually pretty funny. You
know what they say, that the keto man's heart is expensive furniture.
They didn't have any left. Their apartment was empty. they just had like an apartment with a good view. That was literally all they had. It was very odd.
Yeah, that sounds strange.
Yeah. Okay, so your answer would be Cleopatra. Is that the one that we should watch?
I can't say definitively because I haven't finished it.
Okay, might have a really shit ending then. All right,
Yeah.
I'll take that under note.
But I feel like there's a number of movies like that I just haven't seen that I probably should see because they're classics.
I've never seen the
either.
Godfather series, which I know is ridiculous, but
So that's
pretty
actually
contemporary though. That's not like that old.
I watched the first one and I hated it.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh.
I did.
Yeah, you're one of those people.
It didn't do it for me.
Uh-huh.
Well, what was it supposed to do? Rub you and jerk you off for a while?
Well,
Entertain me.
It's
for
the
one.
classic gangster movie, right? Like, to me, Goodfellas is the classic gangster movie, but I guess that, other people would think that that's the classic gangster movie. I think it's an era thing more than anything else, right? But
That's true.
anyway.
Goodfellas is great, though. I love Goodfellas.
I do love Goodfellas. It's also really long, though, like really long, but it's great. Derek, do you have an old movie that you particularly enjoy that you would recommend?
Oh, I love Rio Bravo.
What is Rio
John
Bravo?
Wayne
I've
movie.
never heard of that.
It's like-
I've seen that one.
It's like the most quintessential John Wayne Western American movie.
Okay.
It's like what someone would see getting fresh off the boat to introduce themselves to America. 1950s.
That sounds kind of cool. What's the plot,
Yeah.
roughly?
It just take any Western,
Yeah.
and that's the plot.
Okay. All right.
Like they arrest some guy's son who's a big rancher outside of town. He's also a bad guy. He's got all these people, and they come in and they shoot up the place. It's got Dean Martin, John Wayne, some woman, I can't remember her name, but she's really good looking.
Sounds good.
19
I don't know. I'd watch that. That sounds cool.
Great movie. I've watched it times.
All right. Well, the one that I would suggest is 12 Angry Men from 1957. Ty, you and
Classic.
I watched this ages ago, and I don't know what drove us to watch it because we were a lot younger then, too. I think it was we were on an angry courtroom drama tear, and we found out about this one. It might be the original angry courtroom drama. It stars Henry Fonda. It's from 1957. It's all in black and white, and I think aside from the very first scene, the entire thing is shot in one room. So like it's like a play that was made into a movie. It's a very atypical film by modern standards, but it's a really, really great drama. It's this jury panel of 12 angry men who are trying to decide whether or not a young black kid accused of murder should get the death penalty. And it's about that, and it's about sort of the racial tension and the societal impact of that, but it's also more a study of the different characters of these guys, because every guy is different. Like, one guy just wants to get to a baseball game, and Henry Fonda's character is like, whoa, maybe we should think about it. But some other guys are like, hey, blacks are murderers, and, anyway, it's a good movie. Definitely worth a watch.
I like how they're all just dated as like
Do they not have names?
juror number 5.
I don't think they do.
Oh, wow. Okay, fair enough.
And also, it's one of those movies that's been remade a number of times,
Yes,
so
it
you want
has.
to make sure you get the original.
Yes. You'll
Yes,
know right
apparently
away.
there's one from 1997.
Yeah, it stars.
And it's just a whole bunch of old guys.
Crap, what is his name? Yeah, it stars Edward James Olmos,
Oh, really? Jeez, I really like Edward James Olmos. I might have to look that one up.
Tony Danza, James Gandolfini.
Huh.
Yeah, just tons of people.
Cool. All right.
I don't think there would be a modern day jury though that would just be angry men.
Well, it'd be angry. I mean,
Yeah, but I think they would throw a token woman in there now.
yeah, juries are supposed to be representative of the population, aren't they? No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. It wouldn't be 12 Angry Men anymore.
It'd be like Consuela from Family Guy.
Okay, what's our first article?
So you ever wondered why it's so hard to swat a fly?
Yeah, actually.
I mean, I haven't really ever thought about it.
I don't because I already know.
Yeah, it's always just kind of been this annoying thing, right? But I came across a BBC article that explains why it might be so hard to swat these flies. Essentially, they see the world around them much faster than we do. So if
Like a slow motion camera?
Sort of. So they've got some numbers here. So basically, human eyes take in all eyes take in information as if it's a continuous stream, just like a video that never stops playing. But the human brain can only piece together so much information per second to give you an understanding of the world around you. So the humans do this at roughly 60 times per second, which is why 60 hertz is a pretty common refresh rate on televisions and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Flies do so at 250 times per second. So as you're going to swat them, they can most certainly see it coming.
So they can perceive more granular movements then, or at least the movement of your hand from point A to point B seems to take longer to a fly.
Right, and then they could react faster, even though
it's not necessarily
that
it takes longer. Like they don't necessarily perceive time slower, but more happens in time. This is a hard thing to talk about, right? Because it's super abstract. But
right. So in the article it says to illustrate this, you have a clock with a ticking hand.
Yeah.
And as a human, you see the clock ticking at the normal speed.
Mm-hmm.
A turtle, which sees the world at 15 times a second, the ticking hand would take approximately twice as long to move compared to what we would perceive it at. Whereas a fly, a turtle would see it at twice the speed at which we perceive it at, whereas a fly, each tick would drag on for about 4 times as long as we would see it.
See, that relationship seems odd to me. That feels like that should be inverse. Like, if you think about it, right, given its size, a fly is a very fast creature. Like, if humans could accelerate at the speed that flies could, we'd be pulling some serious G's, you know what I mean? And a turtle is a very slow creature relative to humans. I would intuitively expect that their speed, their vision speed would be the flip of what they are, because it seems to me that if you're a turtle particularly, it's not a good evolutionary thing to move slow and also see slow. You'd think that if you saw slow, you'd want to move fast like a rabbit. Like it would make sense to me if a rabbit only saw it 15 frames a second, even though it's an imperfect
but if you're moving fast, wouldn't you want to be able to react fast?
I agree, because you don't want to run into walls.
Just run into something.
But I guess what I'm getting at is if your evolutionary weakness is that faster creatures can easily move quickly and effectively sneak up on you because they just appear in front of you like they appeared out of nothing, you'd want to be able to move fast to get out of the way if that you know what I mean? I guess that's why turtles have shells, but
a turtle's natural defense isn't exactly its quick movement either.
Right.
So it just kind of gets in its shell and hopes for the best.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
fair
that's
enough.
the other thing is the 250 times a second is just for the average fly, which I'm assuming is the average house fly.
Okay.
But there's actually other flies which see up to 400 times a second, and the fastest fly actually sees over 1,000 times a second.
Really? Huh. I'm really curious as to what that's like experientially, and that's one of those sort of philosophy questions that we can never really answer, I don't think, because it comes down to the question of, are they actually perceiving everything in the world appearing to move slower than it does for us because it's more granular for them? They have more steps of time? Or are their brains seeing it resolved at the same speed, but it just naturally they feel more informed about the trajectory of a thing? Like they can interpret where that thing is going to be better than a human can because they see it faster. You know what I mean? Like that's it it's hard to say whether they actually would experience everything moving apparently slower, or if, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. And anyway, the article gets into a whole bunch of extra other information, like how
do they measure
their
it?
eyes
Was it like light flashes or something, or
that and they've done other tests where they've released prey, like fruit flies, for example, to see the reaction speed.
And they filmed that with like a high-speed camera or something so that they can resolve it?
Yep, exactly.
Interesting. Huh, that's cool.
But yeah, anyway, if you're interested, you can find out, like, it gets into some pretty good detail here, like how the evolution of our eyes started to diverge about 700 to 750 million years ago. So it's kind of, we've seen two different paths, and obviously one is substantially better at perceiving the world quickly.
Do you suppose that it would be useful to humans to be able to see at the higher frame rate? Like, I mean, a lot of what you see, your brain is already kind of cutting it out. I'm into eyes right now. I went to the optometrist the other day for the first time in about 15 years, 12 years. And I happen to have an optometrist who is like a really nerdy, geeky guy. And he was more than happy as soon as I started asking questions to like give me a whole optometry 101 lecture on how the eye worked. And it was fascinating. But he was showing me how one of the things that he talked about was the eye dismisses a huge amount of the information that it takes in because it tends to choose a focal point and then only concentrate on what it's focusing on. So much so that can actually change the way that your eye grows. So he cited some study of these people in North Africa who have a very outdoor kind of pastoral lifestyle, hunting, fishing, that kind of stuff, similar to, I suppose, any native population traditionally. And the way that their eyes develop, they all develop to perceive things at faraway focus by a huge amount, and versus the population of South Korea, which overwhelmingly lives a lifestyle that's based in cities and a lot of screen time, a lot of time spent with phones and televisions and stuff like that, where you have a relatively close focal length, or manufacturing jobs where you're focusing on something small really close to you. And those people have an astoundingly different eye growth pattern where they are overwhelmingly nearsighted because they are focusing on close-up stuff. And that actually apparently changes the way that the eye grows. One of those groups has a more elongated eye structure than the other. And I thought that was really, really interesting because the way that he explained it was he shows, if you think of the circle that is your retina, right? If you're focusing on something that's up close, that thing really only occupies a very small part of the retina, like in terms of the image being projected onto your retina. And so what happens is your brain or your eye, we're not really sure which, prioritizes development of the cells that are on that small center part of the retina, as opposed to all the things out towards the outside edge of the circle. Versus if you don't spend a lot of time focusing on something small and close, the entire eye gets more development. And both of them are equally good depending on the type of lifestyle you choose to lead. Like, it's not necessarily a bad way one way or the other, but your eye adapts to different conditions. Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was really interesting. I guess the impact to our society of that is that there are some eye doctors now that are really concerned about young children spending a lot of time with iPads and phones because you're focusing on something really up close, and you're potentially setting your eye up to not be able to focus as well on big, broad things, so much so as like little near things. And it could be a problem.
I was going to ask if he was telling you all this stuff to kind of...
He wasn't.
Calm me down after he told you were blind or something.
No. I'm not blind. Turns out I have slightly better than 20/20 vision, but what did he say? He told me a whole bunch of stuff that was really interesting. I guess, I should have understood this, 20/20 vision is a really rough estimate of one's quality. Like, it's always quotes like, I've got 20/20 vision, but that's not all that goes into it. Duh, right? That is good, but there's also a measurement that he talked about of how much your eye can correct for geometrical drift, which I thought was really interesting. So I guess your pupils do not, if you picture the lines that come out of your pupils, like the rays that your eyes would cast when you look at the thing, those two lines are not parallel to one another. They sort of come together at an angle, right? Obviously, because your focal point is where those lines match up. So your eyes have to be able to move back and forth to adjust how far that focus is in front of your eye. And some people naturally have eyes that are more pointed towards one another, and some people naturally have eyes that are more pointed away from one another. And then there's a measurement that they do of how much pointing your eyes can accommodate for. So what he did is he made me look at this line of text, and then he twiddled some knobs such that the line of text like actually split into two lines of text, and then measured how much strain he could put on my eyes such that they continued to resolve those two lines of text as a single line. What he was doing was actually moving them farther apart, but my brain was fighting them being farther apart and forcing them to be the same line so that they were the same thing. And he was measuring how much my brain would fight before it gave up and resolved it as two separate things. And that's a measurement. And I thought that was fascinating.
It's similar to how your brain is constantly cutting out the fact that your eyes pick up your nose as well.
Yep, that's another one. He was talking similarly about color bleed and contrast lines. That was really interesting. And what was the other thing he was saying?
Did you ever do that thing back in school where they put like a dot on the wall and you would walk towards it until you couldn't see the dot?
No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Is there a certain point at which you won't be able to see it anymore because you can't focus on it, or what?
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember the full details.
He also talked about how your eye works, and he's like, in a mechanical camera, you adjust the focus by moving the lens forward or backward relative to the sensor. In a human eye, the lens is static. It stays in the same spot. Your eye doesn't get longer or shorter, but what it does is your eye squeezes the lens to make it more or less concave or convex, whatever, more or less rounded, essentially, to adjust the focus length. But as you get older, the lens itself builds up like a layer, and the lens gets thicker. And because the lens gets thicker, that muscle that's meant to squeeze it can't squeeze it as much, and therefore you lose some amount of your ability to modify your focus. And I thought that was really interesting too. Anyway, this guy was just like, I could have spent all day just throwing questions at him, and he was more than happy to answer all of my dumbass questions about eyes. It was really cool. Makes me want to go to the optometrist more often. But he said I don't have to come back for 3 years, so I'll have to save up all my questions, unless I want to pay another $100 for no reason.
Just ask him if he wants to come on the show.
I should. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah, Eyes 101 or something like that. Anyway.
And we have the eyeball special.
Yeah, it was neat. So I have another article here. This one's from the CBC from September 27th, and it's titled Radical and Overreaching. Bell Wants Canadians Blocked from Piracy Websites. Company says a federal agency like the CRTC should create a blacklist of sites. These stories make me so angry.
So I mean, first off, doesn't this already exist? They definitely block some sites.
That's right? What I was thinking when I was reading this entire article. Before we get into that, let me give you a quick summary. Okay, so the quick top to bottom here is that Bell Canada has come out saying that they believe that the CRTC or a similar arm's length organization that's not exactly the Canadian government should be maintaining a list of piracy sites and enabling or requiring telecoms to block Canadians from accessing those sites that are recognized as piracy sites, because they think that the Canadian industry should be propped up, et cetera, et cetera. And it doesn't get into it till the end of the article, but what they're really talking about in all of this is not just the sites, but also encouraging the government to go after commercial enterprises aimed at providing piracy, namely those Android boxes. What are they? Kodi, I think they're called. They go under a bunch of names, but I think the software that runs on them is called Kodi. If you're not familiar with these things, they're a set-top box that you can buy for like $50. They run the same operating system as an Android phone, but they come pre-installed with this bit of software that can allow you to stream television from any number of websites that are running around the world. It's kind of a cat and mouse game. These websites keep getting set up and taken down, but what these boxes do is they give you sort of like a TV guide or like whatever the guide page is on your satellite that lets you choose from what's streaming right now, and then they go out and find the appropriate stream. And of course, it is all illegal. No one's paying for this. They're all streams that are being ripped off from satellite and cable connections. And so Bell is kind of pissed off about that because they see that as a real threat to their television business, I guess.
Does this mean we're going to get rid of all our porn?
I think that there's probably
that's all.
it's not a dumb question, like, because the UK is, as far as I know, still embroiled in a debate over whether or not to block pornography. I think that's what people are most concerned about. Michael Geist and Open Media both are quoted in here as being concerned about whether or not the start of a government blacklist, so to speak, for piracy could eventually be expanded into a government blacklist for pornography would be a good one, or for political opinions that the government's not a huge fan of, or for any other number of reasons. There've been and this is where we get into what Tyler's original question was: is don't we already have one of those? Because I think you're right, Ty. It's hard to believe that there isn't some kind of federal blacklist for some material. I don't know if there's any evidence of it, but I would be shocked if there wasn't.
I think it's an officially known thing.
Is it?
Yeah, for certain they block like terrorism websites and
right.
Child exploitation
okay,
websites.
So like as the
that.
RCMP is shutting down child porn rings, you figure that they're blocking the domains associated with them?
Yeah, I don't know what the actual process they take is, but I do know that ISPs are required to block certain websites.
But the difference...
They haven't blocked Craigslist yet.
The difference, arguably, though, between those two approaches is that the one you're talking about is, I guess, arguably legal reasons. Well, no, then again, I was going to make the distinction between legal reasons and business reasons, but Bell's argument is that copyright law makes this a legal reason, and we should enforce our copyright laws, right? I don't know. I guess
I call it very morally legal reason.
In the past, yeah, you're right. Yes, definitely. Child trafficking or child pornography or whatever has a moral element to it that's, far and away stronger than a copyright law. There's one law definitely has a moral imperative behind it.
I feel like if you really want to get into copyright law and stealing of other people's intellectual properties, you should probably just look right back at the guy who started it all with Alexander Graham Bell. Because he stole the idea of the telephone from the Italian
any number
guy.
of other
What's his
things
name?
too. People have this picture in their heads of Alexander Graham Bell and associated guys of his day as being these amazing inventors. And
no, they just
Thomas
have all the
Edison.
money.
It's just like,
Edison as well.
I came up with this great thing.
They ran.
Edison still has the most
electrified an
patents,
elephant to
right?
death
I think
to convince people that AC power is bad.
They ran R&D teams, though. Like, they had organizations of people inventing and patenting stuff. They were the original patent trolls to some extent, these guys. But I don't know. I guess in my younger days, I was a pretty copyright absolutionist. I sort of thought copyright as implemented in modern Canadian and American society is overreaching and too far in favor of copyright holders and kind of dumb and anti-culture. And I still believe that to an extent. But I guess my real problem with this is that it comes from Bell. Like, I would feel differently about this if it came from somebody that wasn't an organization that runs the majority of Canadians, not the majority, but a huge number of Canadians' internet access and cell phone access and cable television access and landline access, and owns a bunch of sports teams and sports properties, and also produces a huge amount of Canadian news and entertainment content. Like, Bell is a fucking conglomerate, man. They have a monopoly over the Canadian entertainment and telecommunications industry, and a monopoly is the wrong word, but they're part of a duopoly or an oligopoly over those things. And it just feels like whining. Do you know what I mean? Like, Bell makes money hand over fist by bending Canadians over, and now they want this also? Like, it just seems...
So it's funny, because the first thing that came to mind when you were talking about this was, okay, so they're concerned about losing money on pirated content.
Sure.
Most pirated show... outside of the new Star Trek that just started, is Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Who owns the rights to Game of Thrones
Bell.
in Canada? It's the movie network. Who owns the movie network? Bell.
Yes.
So, and we're coming up on the season finale, right? Like, it's going to be big money if they can shut down other avenues to watch it. If you can only watch it through Bell. So,
Okay, one small correction. Season finale of Game of Thrones was a few weeks ago. Clearly, you're not up on the Game of Thrones. I don't know.
No, sorry, the series finale.
Series finale, yes. Next season is the series finale. Okay.
I was using the British term.
Sorry, forgot. You're married to a Brit. She loves when I say that, by the way.
You better edit that out.
Yeah, definitely. If she hears that, I'm
come
going to
over
get
your
smacked. No, you're absolutely correct. But here's the thing, and here's where I'm going to, and if you guys don't want to follow me on this, you don't have to, but I'm going to cop to having a hand dabbling in a little bit of piracy. The only thing that I pirate is Game of Thrones. That's it. And the only reason for it is because you can't get HBO Go without having a Bell cable subscription, and it's really expensive. But I would happily pay money for Game of Thrones. And I've done my part. I want to make it clear. Steph and I also own all of the Game of Thrones seasons on DVD, not because we ever watch them, but because we do want to pay some money for them. It's just a convenience and availability thing. The fact that Bell owns Game of Thrones and ties it so strongly to their cable and satellite properties is the fact that makes it hard for me to get for a reasonable sum of money, and is part of the reason I don't pay directly for it. If they just offered it for $10 a month like Netflix, you telling me I could get Game of Thrones for $10 a month? Absolutely. I would absolutely pay that without question. Like, I feel like in this, Bell is in the last century. They haven't learned the lesson that everyone else has learned. The music industry, the movie industry, like, by and large, everyone's on this bandwagon now where it's like, hey, the thing about piracy isn't really that you can stop people by legislation. It's more that you disincentivize people by providing reasonably accessible and non-cost prohibitive ways of getting that content.
I don't really pirate anything except for, I guess, Game of Thrones is one thing.
Yep.
I steal off of someone else through a sharing platform, not Cody. And like I am perfectly content with Netflix for pretty much everything.
Since Netflix and Spotify have come in for that $20 a month, I don't think I've downloaded a single movie or album I listen to a lot of Spotify. My $10 a month gets well used, and I watch a lot of YouTube and a lot of Netflix. Like, piracy is basically dead. You just need to open up what's still behind walls.
Oh, exactly. And there's so much content you navigate through it anyway. Yep. But so taking the movie network, because I was just Googling how much it actually costs while you were talking. So it is actually only, and I say only in quotes here, $20 a month.
But that's on top of your satellite bill, is that not?
It's on top of a television subscription.
There's your problem.
Now, it doesn't have to be through Bell.
Okay.
There's like Rogers, Videotron, TELUS. There's a whole bunch that I have never even heard of.
Probably because they're from out west, because there's more competition out there.
Sure, and there's some minor ones like Kojiko, for example. You can get in some areas around here. ExecuLink, you can probably get around here. So I don't know if their packages are any cheaper. Maybe I'll actually look into that, just out of curiosity. But yeah, it seems like it's just so funny that they offer this online streaming service, except that you can only get it if you have a subscription.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts, and it's not cheap to get TV is the thing. Even that skinny cable or basic cable or whatever it is they put out earlier this year still starts at $25, $30 a month or something and has fuck all in it. Like, I don't want the product that is broadcast television is the thing. Like, I haven't ever had cable since I moved out of my parents' house, and I'm not interested in starting again. Like, I see no need to watch stuff on someone else's schedule. And don't tell me that a PVR fixes the problem, because then I still have to record a thing, and then I have to manage hard drive space and all that stupid shit, and I don't want to do that. If I could use a PVR, why wouldn't you just let it be on demand? And moreover, even when I have all that, and I pay all that money for cable, it's still chock full of ads. Like, it's a shitty product. Just give me a better product. I will happily pay for that product.
When I went to New York a little while ago, and even some extent Britain, even though Britain I found had much better TV than we have here.
The TV we watched in Britain was great, actually. It was really fun.
When I went to New York, I found that the only thing that was on TV ever was Pawn Stars and American Pickers. Like that is the whole. And,
No, you just never made it off the Discovery Channel.
Oh,
the
that's
Honey
the
Boo Boo
problem.
Show.
Yeah.
No, like it was literally like just channels upon channels of like American Picker, Big Bang Theory marathons, American Picker marathons. Like that's all that it was, and I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah.
There's like nothing here. Like, why would you ever pay $100 a month for cable, and then you have to go, like, my parents constantly say, oh, there's nothing on TV, and I'm like, and you're paying $100 a month. It makes
Yes.
no sense.
Yes. And then add to that, if you're a sports fan, the way that they get bent over, my God. Like I don't follow sports much, but the way that Alex talks about trying to get access to hockey games played by teams that are in the city he lives in, you know, it's nuts the amount of money that you pay to get reasonable access to sports games on cable television. It's crazy.
Yeah. So even like ExecuLink is cheaper than what Bell offers, surprise, but like it's just so complicated. You have to have a Link TV starter pack, which is $14 a month. That gets you 24 channels. It's not clear whether or not you need internet. It says $14. Oh, okay. Actually, it is clear. You do need internet on top of that from them. So whatever that costs.
So $14 plus at least $50 plus
$17 for the movie network.
Right. So all in, you're talking just to get access to the movie network then, and therefore to the HBO content, you're talking the $14 plus the $17, $32 or whatever that is. Yeah. On top of your internet costs. Whereas
throw in Netflix and you're up at almost $50 a month.
if HBO
in TV only.
but HBO Go in the States, what does that cost? It's not expensive.
I think it's $10 a month,
I think so.
$12 a month. something.
$15 a month. HBO Now costs a flat rate of $15 a month in the States. And it does not require a cable subscription to use. And HBO Go is free if you have a cable subscription. So, but I would happily pay $15 a month for HBO content. No question. But Bell's got it locked up behind their bullshit. So fuck you, Bell.
Also, while we're on this case of TV shenanigans and bullshittery, I'm very confused because I had read a long time ago that the new Star Trek, outside of America, going to be on Netflix.
Oh.
But for some reason in Canada, it's not.
Because in the States, it's on CBS, right? It's part of they have a streaming platform or something.
The CBS All Access. But in Canada, can we even get CBS All Access now?
I don't know, but did you read the other thing about the CBS All Access? It's the software that runs to stream you the video mines cryptocurrency in the background to make the money.
Oh, that's fantastic. They're doing that. Oh, great.
Because advertisements don't make enough money anymore.
That's insanity. Oh my God. And yet Netflix can offer a $10 a month subscription and spends how many millions a year developing and producing television shows? Like, it's just, I'm speechless when I think about how backwards these companies are. It's crazy.
Okay, apparently they did bring CBS All Access to Canada. Actually, I don't know if they brought it to Canada. Never mind. I'm very confused.
No, this one says it's starting streaming service internationally starting in Canada next year, so 2018.
Oh, okay.
So that means if I want to watch Star Trek,
you can wait till 2018.
The only option I have if I want to watch it now is to pirate it.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So to me, you're setting yourself up to fail from day one. Of course, I'm going to pirate that show if I want to watch it, because the internet exists. I can't wait a year to watch Star Trek. Somebody will spoil it all for me. Like, fuck. They just don't get it, man. They just don't get it.
We're the problem.
Oh, that's
interestingly enough, the U.S. service costs $6 a month or $10 if you don't want commercials. So that's kind of a funny a way to offer.
If I'm
some
paying
choice,
for something, it shouldn't have commercials. Straight up. Like, that's the rule. If I'm paying for it, it should not have ads. Because, and the internet doesn't count. Look, the internet's full of ads, but I'm not paying for the websites directly. I'm paying for the internet service. But if I'm paying directly for your website or service, there should not be ads. Charge what it's worth. Now,
maybe Netflix has spoiled us.
Oh, sorry, Derek. It says in Canada, the rights to the new Star Trek have been sold to CTV and space and Z, whatever that is.
Oh, okay. So they might actually end up on Canadian television.
It'll be on Crave TV later the year.
Oh God, later in the year.
Well, Crave TV.
Well, I guess now I have two things to watch on Crave TV.
I have
Letterkenny
signed up for Crave TV twice now and canceled my subscription after the first month in both cases. Not because the content wasn't good. I would argue the content was stale because in both cases I was signing up because of Letterkenny. There was about a year between those Letterkenny releases, and when I went in for the second time, I could have sworn nothing had changed on the platform except Letterkenny. Like, everything else was exactly the way that it had left. That said, the content that was there was pretty good. They have a whole bunch of back HBO stuff. Not the current thing. You can't watch current Game of Thrones on it for some inexplicable reason, but you can watch old seasons, like all the old Sopranos and stuff like that is on there. But the thing that stopped me from watching Crave TV was that the service itself on a technical level sucked. It was brutal. It would crash. It didn't do like adaptive streaming if your network kind of hiccuped. You know how Netflix gets temporarily crappy and then kind of comes back, but it doesn't interrupt you. It would just interrupt and say, oh, can't play that anymore. And then it would forget where you were in the thing you were watching. So you'd have to fast forward to get back to the spot that it crashed out at. And a number of other little just paper clips or paper cut things like that just made it like... Not everything should be compared to Netflix in the video streaming marketplace because Netflix is the big dog and it's really hard to beat them on a technical level. They have hundreds of engineers working on making it as good as it can be. But by the same token, if you're going to launch a video streaming platform, you have to know you will be compared to Netflix. And so you got to kind of get your shit in gear, man. You can't just put it out and have it just like crash on people and just have it full of bugs. And again, I tried it on 2 occasions almost a year apart, and nothing had changed. Like, it was like they hadn't updated the app to fix any of those problems. So I have a hard time paying for something that is just kind of buggy and difficult to use, and on a technical level, not even close to what you expect from a modern streaming platform.
I wouldn't compare it to Netflix, but any modern streaming platform, I would just instantly compare it to at least YouTube.
Yeah. At minimum.
Right? And so YouTube does basically your adaptive streaming.
Mm-hmm.
It gets shitty for a second. And it will even remember if you're signed in where you were in a show.
Yes.
And what you've watched. And so if you can't do basic YouTube things, then you suck and deserve to die in the wastes of corporate monotony.
It's just like, if you're going to build it right. Hire the right people. Do a good job. It's not, look, I make software for a living, man. This stuff can be done. Canada. Yeah. So look, all of these streaming services and walled gardens aside, what do you guys think of these Kodi boxes? Because I think I'm a little bit more lenient on my idea here, right? Whereas like they can fuck right off with cracking down on piracy if they're not, or blacklisted piracy sites if they're not going to provide reasonable access to content, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These Kodi boxes are kind of different because you have what appear to be actual legitimate companies with like salespeople. I've seen them at home shows and shit, where they're selling these Kodi boxes for $50 and they're making money selling a box that has no other use but to be a piracy device. Like,
so Kodi is not...
Kodi's an open source project. That's we should make
Kodi's
that distinction.
Yes,
agreed.
So you can run Kodi on any PC.
But these are they have a picture in the article of something called an MXG Pro, but that's not the only one by far. There are tons of these little boxes that I've seen. I don't remember the brand names, but they're all the same.
All these vendors do is they basically buy the
cheap hardware,
super cheap commodity PCs, small form factor PCs, and they install
like the
Kodi.
Raspberry Pis, right?
Yep.
Sort of,
like that.
a little bit, probably a little bit more powerful, but that's about it. But the major thing that everyone's angry at them for is not because they're installing Kodi, but because they're installing Kodi and then setting up Kodi with all these plugins that look for the pirated content.
Right, whereas Kodi itself, the base install, does not do any of that. Is that the idea? They're giving Kodi a bad name, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, Kodi is by default, it'll look, you can point it at things on your network and play videos.
So it's like Plex, similar to same
yeah,
idea.
exactly.
Okay.
Or like Windows Media Center.
Yeah.
From way back in the day.
Right.
The difference is it's expandable through plugins.
And there are plugins that have been written to get this pirated content.
Yep.
So how do you feel about a company, though, that is making a buck selling a device that arguably has no purpose except to break copyright law? kind of seems like that shouldn't be allowed, you know?
No, and I don't really like it, but at the same time, another thing that I don't like is a lot of people that buy them are under the impression that it is legal.
But they're under that impression, I think, in part because these companies do nothing to dissuade people from that idea. They just say, you can get free television.
Well, and to be clear, it is legal for them to sell these boxes because the boxes themselves contain no pirated content. They don't actually. No,
yeah,
by
but
default,
they are configured out of the box to get pirated content. That's hard to.
Not entirely true. They're configured out of the box to reach out to a web service that then provides them with the means to find the pirated content.
Okay, so maybe they're not breaking the letter of the law, but they're sure as hell contravening the spirit of the law. Like, come on now, that's weasel words if I ever heard them.
But like, I mean, literal salespeople that a few people that I know.
Yeah.
They've talked to the salespeople, and the salespeople have told them, since you're not downloading the content, it's not illegal.
That's not
you're
true
not breaking,
at all.
You're not breaking. And I'm like, okay, when you're streaming something, you are downloading it, because all the download is you're downloading individual frames with audio content.
It's just a temporary
and
download.
The stream is the exact same thing.
Yes, exactly. Whether or not you keep the content on your hard drive has no impact on the legality. You are still taking something without paying for it that is not free. There is no question. So, I don't know, that puts me in a weird position, right? Like, where I'm like, I don't think copyright laws should be any stronger, and frankly, I don't think they should be stronger enforced because I don't see the efficacy of it. I think that the answer is to provide people low-cost alternatives rather than, like, putting things behind paywalls. But on the flip side, I am also not super comfortable with these companies that are selling this box to people that are allowing people to break the law, but they're not telling people about the legal ramifications of what they're doing. That seems super shady. And I don't think I would have I don't think I would be too sad to see the RCMP go after these guys.
No, me either. I mean, you're never going to stop anyone from, like, you can just go download it yourself,
yeah,
right?
Sure you can.
So there's no reason for you to pay.
But someone's done the hard work for you and charge $50,
and it's for the average people who don't know.
Oh yeah, look,
enough.
I
to
have
actually
family
set it up
members who
themselves,
use these things because again, it's for the average. Anybody can grab it, plug it into their TV, and it just works. But anyway, the other thing that I would be concerned about because I have a great big tinfoil hat is what's that thing doing sitting on my network? Like,
for sure.
Lord knows it's never getting updated. Who knows what's garbage software is running on it. Lord knows it's probably part of a botnet out of the box. Like, it's a sketchy device from a sketchy place, right? Like, who's to say what that's doing to potentially compromise the safety of your home network? But that's my tinfoil hat, I guess.
I wouldn't even call that a tinfoil hat. I would call that basically everything that you just said common sense. No.
Fair enough.
Like, who got a DDoS attack a little while ago, and it was for mostly like thermostats.
Oh, yeah. I actually just heard about unrelated. I don't know the answer to your question, but on a related note, I was at a talk the other night that was about ransomware. You remember the WannaCry story from a little while ago where there was malware that people were getting on their computers. It was encrypting all their files and demanding they pay like $300 in Bitcoin to get them unlocked. Apparently, there have been two other really interesting cases of ransomware that were not just people's files. One was a hotel's key access system was attacked, and so all the hotel's guests were locked either inside their room or out of their rooms until the hotel paid the ransom. Said hotel subsequently went back to issuing physical keys as opposed to key access. And another one was a thermostat attack where there was, in some institutional building, I think it was a big office building, there was a ransomware attack where a building was specifically attacked, their thermostat system was hacked, and they jacked the temperature up in the building and demanded money to be able to unlock the system and put the temperature back to sane levels. And all the tenants of the building basically couldn't use the building in the meantime.
But can you imagine if that happened to a server farm somewhere?
Oh my god, yeah. It would destroy it.
All of a sudden, the thermostats all go wonky and...
Yeah.
Oh god, the room is fucking 50 degrees C. Our servers are going to explode.
I feel like we've come through... And look, I'm not an IT professional, despite the fact that in some parts of the world that is synonymous with computer programmer. I'm not someone who works in like networks and computer hardware side of things. But I think we've come through this period now where everybody assumed that every computer should have internet access, and there's maybe a good argument to be had that there was a class of computers that need not be on the wide internet. It's dangerous, They don't need to be connected. I don't know.
I think that's common sense.
Yeah, you'd think so, but then there's the Internet of Things where like everything has a computer and an IP address, you know? My coffee maker does not need to be internet connected. Thank you very much. Nor does my thermostat or my smoke detector. Both things that we talked about on recent episodes of the show. Okay. Fuck Bell is the bottom line. Okay, well, I think that's about it for us tonight. Hey, did you guys have a good time?
Oh, are you talking to us or the listeners?
Well, they can't respond, so obviously I'm talking to you.
Yes.
Good work. I'm glad
Excellent.
you had a good time. If you had a good time, now I'm talking to listeners. See what I did there? You should send us an email and tell us about it at contact@slightlySauced.com. If you had a bad time, I don't know why the hell you're still listening, but if you stubbornly made it this far, by all means, send us an email and tell us why, and why you think we're wrong, I guess. And hey, we're still promising our jingle bounty. If you send us a couple of emails, we'll make you a jingle. So, if you want to have a catchy Ernie song, you just gotta send some emails, and you'll get one eventually, I guess. So that's the thing.
Yep. You could also, you don't even have to review us. Just rate us on iTunes. You don't even have to write anything. Just go in there, hit some stars.
Yeah, do that.
Apparently that's the thing that matters.
Are we
so
on
there you go.
Spotify podcasts? Apparently people are on Spotify podcasts now. Is that a thing we do?
I don't think it's open for public.
Oh, okay. So it's only like a couple of big people who've been picked to be on it, I guess.
Yep.
All right. Well, eventually, if that
But we're
opens
on
up
Google
public,
and
we'll be
the
on
others.
Spotify. In the meantime, Google and iTunes and everywhere else you get podcasts.
YouTube.
We're probably on Stitcher. I don't know. Maybe.
I think we
Yeah,
are.
sure. Why not? Just Google us. You'll find it. It's all at SlightlySauced.com if you can't. And see ya.